The old man's hands shook as he tried to steady the grocery bag against his chest, apples bruising each other inside the thin plastic while the young men circled him like bored predators killing time, their laughter sharp and careless, the kind that echoed too loudly for such a narrow street, and every passerby felt it, that instinctive pull to look away, to pretend this wasn't happening, because the city teaches you early that involvement comes with a price, and the elderly man knew it too. Which is why his eyes stayed low, fixed on the cracked pavement as if humility might make him invisible, but invisibility is a lie bullies never believe in, and one of the young men stepped closer, tapping the old man's chest with 2 fingers, not hard enough to be assault, just enough to humiliate, asking him where he thought he was going in such a hurry, telling him to smile, telling him to loosen up, while another kicked at the bottom of the grocery bag, sending one apple rolling across the street, and the old man flinched, not from pain, but from memory, because this wasn't new, it was a familiar cruelty that had followed him through buses and sidewalks and long years of shrinking himself to survive, and as the apple rolled, time stretched in a strange way, because it crossed the shadow of a man who had just stepped out of the corner gym, a man built like a wall that learned how to move, wearing a plain hoodie pulled low, hands relaxed, posture unassuming, but there was something about how the street seemed to exhale when he stopped walking, how the noise dulled without anyone understanding why, because Mike Tyson had spent a lifetime learning how silence worked, how fear announced itself before fists ever did, and he saw everything, the disrespect, the false bravado, the old man's posture screaming apology without words, and for a moment he didn't move, because Tyson understood restraint better than violence, understood that power wasn't about acting fast but about choosing when to act at all, and the young men didn't notice him at first, they were too busy performing for each other, too drunk on the illusion that the world had no consequences, until one of them looked up, laughed mid-sentence, and stopped, the sound dying awkwardly in his throat as his eyes locked onto something he couldn't immediately name but felt in his bones, and that pause rippled outward, one by one the others turning, their smiles cracking, confusion setting in, because the man standing a few steps away didn't look angry, didn't look aggressive, he just looked present, grounded, like gravity had chosen a human form, and Mike Tyson didn't raise his voice or clench his fists, he simply stepped closer, close enough that the old man felt warmth at his side, close enough that the young men instinctively leaned back, and in that moment the street truly went silent, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses against your ears, that makes your heart louder than the world around you. And Tyson finally spoke, low and calm, asking a single question that carried more weight than shouting ever could, asking if there was a reason they felt brave picking on someone who couldn't fight back, and the words landed hard, because there was no anger in them, only disappointment, the kind that strips excuses bare, and one of the young men tried to laugh it off, muttering something under his breath, but his voice trembled, betraying him, because confidence can't survive proximity to real power, and Tyson tilted his head just slightly, not threatening, just attentive, and that was worse, because every instinct in their bodies screamed that this was a man who didn't need to prove anything, a man who had already lived the outcome of violence and chosen discipline instead, and the old man finally looked up, eyes wide, recognizing the face not from fear but from memory, televisions, headlines, history, and something in his shoulders eased for the first time in years, because for once the world hadn't looked away, and Tyson placed a hand gently on the old man's arm, steadying him, then looked back at the young men and told them to pick up the apple, and the command wasn't loud or forceful, yet it cut through them, because authority doesn't beg, and one of them bent down quickly, almost tripping over himself, grabbing the apple and placing it back into the bag with shaking hands, and Tyson nodded once, not in approval but in acknowledgement, then said something softer. Something that would haunt them longer than any punch ever could, telling them that someday they'd be old too, someday their strength would fade, and all they'd have left was how they treated people when no one was watching, and with that he stepped back, creating space, because real dominance doesn't crowd, it releases, and the young men didn't say another word, didn't laugh, didn't posture, they just walked away, faster than they'd arrived, the illusion shattered, the street slowly inhaling again as sound returned, cars passing, footsteps resuming, and the old man stood there trembling, not from fear now but from relief, gripping his grocery bag like it was proof that dignity could still be defended, and Mike Tyson stayed with him for a moment longer, asking quietly if he was alright, waiting for the answer like it mattered, because it did, and as the old man nodded, voice too thick to speak, Tyson helped him pick up the remaining apples, handing them back one by one, a small act that somehow felt monumental, and before he left, Tyson looked toward the invisible audience of bystanders who had witnessed everything and said something that felt like it wasn't just for them, but for everyone listening to this story right now, reminding them that strength isn't about domination, it's about protection, it's about choosing courage when silence is easier, and as he walked away, hoodie disappearing into the rhythm of the city, the street returned to normal, but everyone who saw it knew something had changed, because they just watched fear lose without a single punch thrown. And if stories like this move you, if you believe moments like this deserve to be remembered and shared, then don't just listen, be part of it, subscribe to the channel, because every story you support helps keep these moments alive, reminding the world that real power doesn't shout, it stands still and lets truth do the work.